All right, we're at 3 after. I don't see too many more people hopping on, so I'll go ahead and get it started off. Again, welcome everyone to this masterclass. My name is Mark Joyner. I am the product manager slash strategy and business development manager at Medisca, and I hold these master classes on a on a pretty frequent basis. We've been averaging about one a month. We cover several different topics within the compounding industry, from implementing new technology to increasing your efficiencies to dropping your bottom line with your technician shortages, increasing wellness in the workplace. So there's a lot of different things that we usually discuss during these master classes, and this is a really special one. This is actually the first one where we have a guest joining us, and we have Independent RX. I won't take their thunder. They're going to do a much better job of explaining on what they do. But the purpose of this class is to kind of have a collaborative, open discussion between myself, who is kind of boots on the ground in and out of independent pharmacies across the country, and then utilizing their expertise on the accounting and financial side of owning an independent pharmacy. So guys, go ahead and introduce yourself if you would.
Yeah, I can start. My name is Rich Danhoff, and I'm partners with these guys, and we've transitioned basically from owning pharmacies to helping pharmacies operate. And we do accounting. My background is a CPA. I'm not a pharmacist. I'm a CPA. I own pharmacies with Tim as a minority partner for 15 years. And now, most of our efforts are on, operating and doing accounting and tax work for pharmacies. But again, my background is big public accounting and technology companies and stuff outside of pharmacy until the last probably 16 years or so.
My name is Tim Clark. I'm the pharmacist at the table. Third generation pharmacist. I've worked with these guys for like you said, a really long time. Rich has been our partner in the pharmacy business, and so is Owen. Owen's dad and I worked together for 20 plus years, and still have one compounding pharmacy and a long-term care pharmacy. Our major business is to help people who want to get into the pharmacy business, and we try to give them some good advice. Typically our advice is to get into things that aren't the traditional pharmacy business, like let's say Walgreens or CVS. And that's where it's great to be on with Medisca, who most of the people who we talk to get into the pharmacy business, we suggest compounding as a vehicle to get some great professional experience and feel goods, but also from a business aspect, I think we're really strong and feel good about compounding. One of Rich's jobs, also being our CFO, was to work with our compounding pharmacy to help it grow and manage, kind of transform them into like just a little store into something that makes some decent money. And that's my position, I guess. I help people, I guess, also sell their pharmacy. So if anybody's looking at, if they're in the pharmacy business of selling part of our company, we help people buy stores, start stores, sell stores. Our biggest thing right now is the ongoing services of accounting, bookkeeping, and tax data analytics for pharmacy owners, so they kind of know what their business is doing now, and we kind of give them the honest perspective of where it is and some ideas of what to do next.
Yeah, and I'm Owen Bondurant. I'm also a partner in the company. Most of my focus is in the helping people buy and start pharmacies. We've helped in the last 8 years 150 people start and buy a pharmacy. But like Tim or Rich said, I mean, I'm partners with Tim right now in the couple of pharmacies that we have left, one of which is a compounding pharmacy. But we're doing accounting for 110 stores. There's a lot of consulting and business work here. Not just doing the accounting, but talking to people about operations and so forth. So that's kind of how we got involved with Medisca, is through all of that, and how we got onto this call.
Very nice. Great introduction. So you guys would say you are the experts when it comes to, getting into the weeds of a business and kind of knowing what are the trials and tribulations, the things you need to look out for, the pitfalls, things that you should be focusing on, spending more energy, identifying so that, when you're looking at a year-long runway, there's no surprises, right? Because as an independent pharmacy owner, we don't want surprises whatsoever. So with that being said, I guess, we put together a few questions and some hot topics that I thought would be indicative and useful for everyone attending today. So I'll throw it to you guys and I'll say, as, consultants in that role, what are some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing in today's kind of industry?
From my standpoint and the ongoing point where we're looking at, operating pharmacies every day, the challenges that everybody's seeing is traditional retail is a tough business, right? And so we're seeing margins compress. We're seeing DIR fees eat into those margins each year. And we're seeing costs increase, particularly cost of people. And so those two things are things that are, both going, adding together to cause stress on pharmacies today. And so, I think as Tim mentioned, that's where different lines of business, such as compounding, where, traditional retail pharmacies are driving, 18% margins after DIRs, and compounding is driving 75% margins, and it's cash business. So, being able to diversify your business and push towards, more profitable lines to sustain, and those compounds traditionally come with retail scripts. So, there are synergies there. So those are the types of things that we're seeing, is that, you got to find ways to cover those costs. And with rising costs, particularly in the personnel area, and margins decreasing, it's creating a lot of stress on pharmacies.
Yeah, payroll or just people is becoming a problem, right? So we have inflation causing wages to go up. And then two, you just can't find employees. In particular, technicians are very difficult to find. And if you're looking for them, they're expensive now. I mean, technicians used to be $15, $16 an hour, and now they're 25, right? And so we've got to figure out ways to do more with less. And, compounding allows you to do that a little bit just because you get more margin. We kind of have a philosophy that, there's only three parts of your business: revenue, cost of goods sold, your inventory, or people, right? And so we need to increase revenue, we need to reduce our cost of goods, and we need to keep our payroll in check. Compounding solves revenue and cost of goods. If you do more compounds, you make a 75% margin, but it does not solve your people problem. You actually need more skilled and more people to make it. So within compounding in particular, finding people has been a problem.
And that's where, Medisca has really found a nice solution with the Maz technology, in the fact that it will reduce your labor cost. The cost to create a compound is going to significantly decrease if you can make them faster, right? So if the technician isn't having to spend, 10 minutes, 20 minutes per compound, and it can drop down to 3 to 4 minutes, I mean, you've cut your labor costs in half right out the gate per compound. So I think that's one thing that I try to teach a lot of independent pharmacy owners is, you really kind of do need to, process it out. You need to look at, how much, don't just look at your raw cost of goods, but how much time it's taking for each one. If you want to be competitive and affordable, like you need to drop that labor cost down, and you also have to account for all the things that a lot of people forget about, and that's cleanup. That's a lot of the consumables, all those things that you take for granted as part of your overhead. You need to start thinking outside the box a little bit and introducing some more efficient technologies to help, again, like what you said, drop that bottom dollar on the wages that you have to give out for technicians. And most importantly too, with the technology we've developed, it's 100% reproducible. So we've developed SOPs and all those different things. So it doesn't matter what type of technician you hire. You guys touched on it yourself. It's hard to find a qualified technician with technology like this that is very process oriented, and we've already done all the validated testing for you. You can really kind of just turnkey. Any technician can go in and start compounding right away, and they were going to be able to create a compound quickly and just as good as the guy who's been doing it for 20 years. So it's a really, really big value add. The biggest hurdle, and I was even doing a demo today is the price, you know. So I mean, how would you guys, you know, kind of tackle that if somebody's saying, hey, I want to buy you, I mean, I have a capital expenditure that I want to do, you know, what should I be looking for in a return on that? You know, how do I quantify that?
Well, yeah, I guess I'd first say that if you're going to be in your business, you've got to, you talk about a 1 year runway, but when you're in the pharmacy business, you could be on a 5, 10, 20, 30 year runway. So as you look at what you're going to do and what you're going to spend your time doing, putting yourself into things that are less employee driven is, it's pharmacists are kind of, at one point we were kind of ahead of the technology thing of putting, let's say, all of our prescriptions into a pharmacy system when doctors would do everything in charts. And then there became this thing where now doctors in some ways are ahead of pharmacies, and that, everything there is electronic, and they've kind of gotten out of the people business. It used to be that Mary would call in the script to the pharmacy, and I'd have a great relationship with Mary on the phone. But now I don't talk to Mary. Now I get it e-scribed over to my pharmacy. So they figured out that less employees is the only way to see more people. So you as a pharmacist, as much as we're resistant, I feel like pharmacists can be resistant to thinking I've got to be, Dr. Tim and have these relationships with people. Well, the only way to have relationships with people in today's profitability thing is I've got to have time to talk to people. So if that's the case, me as the pharmacist, I got to stop, with the mortar and the pestle, banging stuff together to make it, and use, new technology like, Medisca and other people have to make it simpler. And, I think there's a lot of people who are afraid to go to technology because do I really trust it? Okay, you've got this SOP, but like, I don't think pharmacists, again, understand that can let you do all the things that you went to pharmacy school to do. And if you really want to do that, then, getting into this line of business or adding it can really make it more rewarding. I mean, that's kind of why we all go to, you could work at a big accounting firm and you don't, because that would kind of suck. But we go to have these independent pharmacies because we're looking at doing something for ourselves and actually enjoy what we're doing. And so technology, you've got to kind of take the hat off of, oh no, into, oh, I got to do this because all that PPP money, all that money that I had in the bank over the couple of years to do really, I guess I'll say, bad business to get us through the pandemic. Now we've got another flux of change, which if you look at anything in the market, anytime there's a flux of change, it's an opportunity. So stop complaining and start thinking of the future.
And from a return perspective, Mark, I mean, I think Tim's right. There's the 1 year return, but like a machine like Maz, or if you guys have ever gotten a Parada or something like that, you've got to look at it over a 5-10 year period and going, okay, well, am I able to either not hire someone, or the next person I hire is less, or can I do more business with this technology, right? And going, all right, if I buy this for X amount of dollars and it prevents me from even just not hiring someone for 6 months because I can do more with less, well, then I've just paid for that return. Plus in the future, I do it again. And so you've kind of got to look at over time, and make sure you're not just getting focused, am I going to make money today? This is an investment for, the future of your business, right? And when Betty retires, can you just have Betty retire and not hire someone because you've put all these technologies in place?
Well, even better yet, now I don't have to hire Betty that's got, 20 years of experience. I can hire anybody who can come in and stick 3 things in a jar.
Exactly.
I mean, or in the robot thing, typically was really the trained technicians that don't like the robot because, oh, well, you have to calibrate this or do that. But, we could probably all hire, let's say, our kids who aren't working in pharmacy, and within probably 20 minutes, we can probably tell them how to handle a robot. I mean, really, seriously.
Yeah.
It's,
No.
oh, well, how many, it's beep, beep,
Well, again, it comes back to our, what are you going to save by doing this, right? So I got to go out. It's the cost of half a year technician wages to buy one, right? So am I going to finance this thing? Do I have cash to put into it? But what's my return on that investment? And that's the challenge, right? Because you always hear these pitches that it's going to save me a bunch of payroll
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
cost to go invest in the equipment. And does it really? And in our stores, we bought Script Pros, we bought Paradas, we bought some big time automation. And I can tell you a lot of times that didn't save us payroll, right?
Because they didn't use it right.
They didn't
So-
use it right.
But the MAS, I think, is a unique in that, there are a lot of ways that the MAS can actually cut down payroll. Now, do we see people that would buy a MAS and turn around and, go let people go? Probably not, but it does it does change your trajectory on what your hiring practices are going to be, because we have seen turnover. And so, I think it's got a unique ability to do a lot of things that are truly time savers.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of times, like a Parada and some of those other ones, they create some efficiency, but it's really hard to recapture that in wages, right?
It's funny you say that, because I was actually just I was in a pharmacy less than an hour ago with a potential MAS owner. He was taking a look at it, and his first thing was, after we showed him all the different things you can do with it, and he saw how quickly you can create a compound with it. His first question was like, well, I'm just starting to think, what are all my technicians going to do now? And his immediate reaction was not, oh, I'm going to let them go. It was like, oh, now they can actually be a technician. They can help count scripts. They can do all those other things that they're hired to do, instead of only be doing compounding. So you can diversify your staff, which again is there is no associated cost to that. But by having a more skilled technician that can do more different things, you're getting more value for them, right?
What if you take one of those technicians and have them go do sales for half the week?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Or if you're talking to Rich, who's looking at your finances, I mean, he can tell you what you're going to do. You're going to save money if you don't have that much payroll.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're aware that your cash flow is getting lower, I mean, one of the things sometimes we need to do is, and I'm not saying that let's say we let people go, but I mean, it's a business. And the hard thing about a business, like I can say as an owner, is like, any people that we take care of, and I think all of us are included, it's hard for us to think of letting anybody go. That's because we're nice people. Most pharmacists are nice people, and people who own pharmacies are nice people, right? But sometimes you need to know that, okay, the black and white of this is, oh, I do this and maybe I do need less people. That's not a bad thing. Maybe now it's a better opportunity for that lady who is good at talking on the phone or talking to a customer or a doctor, like you say, going out and marketing. The thing you've got to think of is, okay, now it allows me as the business owner to make a decision. And I think that's where, what we hate is like, and once you say this, Rich, when you look at a cost or, one of your clients that basically they have no decisions. Because they can't even do anything differently to make any money, right? They don't need to do anything.
Yeah, but whereas if you implement technology and you have some cash, I mean, you can make the decision to have less hours.
Yeah.
Or, when that person does quit, you maybe don't rehire someone because the technology has created efficiencies within your business. Or, some people might actually let people go.
Well, when we talk about investment too, I mean, as compounders, that there is a constant need for investment in technology, right? Whether it's EMPs or balancers or hoods or changing standards. And so we've all, had to deal with this USP 800 and 795, 797, all the stuff that goes along with that. And for us, as we looked at doing our own hazardous room, right, we were looking at duplication of equipment. And so, I think, maybe Mark, you can talk a little bit, because this is the stuff that gets me excited, right? As we look at, buying duplication of equipment, is there?
Now we can stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The MAS can.
Now we can buy one piece of
The
equipment.
MAS can do both hazardous and non-hazardous, because it's in a sealed container. So.
Well, and I'll pivot back to like I kid you not, I was just in a pharmacy less than an hour ago, and that exact question came up. The guy's like, "Well, I'm gonna have to buy two, aren't I? Because I have my hazardous room, I have my non-hazardous room." When in reality, you only need to buy one. So because it's a closed system, you can weigh everything out, all your hazardous materials inside of the container that it's mixing in, or you can utilize some of the adapters that we have, and you can weigh out all of your hazardous materials directly inside of the applicator you'd be dispensing to your patients. And then you can put your cap on. That's now considered a closed container. Put it into your pass-through, your non-hazardous area. You can take it out, put it into the unit, spin it for 2 minutes, and then you're ready to go. It'll homogenize directly inside the applicator. You slap your patient label on, and then it's out the door. So that in and of itself is a huge game saver, changer. You know, especially with the new implementation of USP 800. I mean, by what is it? By the end of 2024, there's, I mean, every compounding pharmacy has to have USP implemented.
Some state that's like right now.
It's already there.
Well, I mean, yeah, it is already there, but I know that there's a lot of, you know, things that you can push it back. Like I'm still underway, this, that, and the other. But this really does kind of take me to my next kind of like question or pivot, because it's within the same realm. Is, you know, like what does the implementation of technology do on the flip side to help retain people? You know, like what you know, from my experience, I've seen. This is a bit of an exaggerated story, but you know, I have an owner in California. It was a father and son shop, and the son did all the compounding. I laugh at this story because it's a little dramatic, but it is true. So his son, he said that for years, he rarely saw him over the weekends. So on Saturdays, his son was always tired, slept in, like just never saw him. They purchased a Maz, and then a few months later, he started realizing that he's seeing his son much more often on the weekends. And and he asked me, he's like, "Hey, like, do you have more energy? Like, what's going on? Like, you're doing?" He's like, "Dad, to be quite honest, on Saturdays at the end of the week, I'm not exhausted because I'm not having to do as much manual labor when I'm compounding. Like, it's made things so much easier for me that my weekends are much more enjoyable." So, you know, that translates across the board to, you know, everyone else. I mean, this is just a much more intimate relationship, father-son. But I mean, if you can provide an easier thing for your technicians, I mean, I think they're going to want to stick around, right?
Well, this comes back to the whole thing about finding employees. I mean, it's just hard to retain them because they're getting offers from stay-at-home jobs for $25 an hour. They're not even in the retail setting, right? So retaining people is almost as important as finding, but it is an important thing because what we're seeing is people are growing. They can't find people, so now they're overworking the people they do have. And so they've got to find ways to make their job easier.
Yeah.
And allow them
Stress.
to do.
Gotta
Yeah.
get rid of the stress. That's
Yes.
what everybody's after. Like your story, I mean, decrease the stress dramatic. You're right. That was a pretty dramatic story that decreased his stress, but a lot of people that you see, you know, that are in pharmacy, especially busy, successful stores, they're stressed.
Oh yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and your technicians in particular have another option to go other places. And so they can get out of the retail setting or dealing with customers, or, I mean, they have other places, hospitals and call centers. And I mean, there's all kinds of people hiring technicians anymore. And
Yeah.
so they have other places to go. So you've got to, you know, technology is one way to make it less stressful and for them to, you know, and like if you're doing it the old way where you're doing that, it also is hard on their body.
I like, you know, your comment really kind of hits me where technology does let me to ease into a new employee faster. Like, again, back in the day when we would type a prescription and we didn't have a computer and we would count everything on the little tray and you know, and then we'd submit our bill to MetaMed on a little credit card machine and all the things that have changed in the whole pharmacy thing. You know, it used to be such a pain in the butt for someone to come in and work that had any value unless they'd been there for how long? Like if you'd hire somebody in the compounding place, how long would it take them to have any value to Robin?
6 months.
6 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where,
Because
like,
it's complicated. You got to make drugs and mix things and understand. all this different stuff.
I mean, and we've taken, so, I mean, myself along with the Maz team, I mean, there's now 6 of us that are solely dedicated to implementing the technology into pharmacies. So no longer do you have to, create your own SOPs. Do you have to spend, your 6 months getting them up to speed on how to create things, go through your processes. We've all made it a very, very easily accessible. We actually have it housed on a website to where essentially now it's a tile system. You can go and you can look at your compounding process, whether it's making an HRT cream, whether it's making a suppository, whether it's making a suspension, and you click it, it lists it out exactly. You put this, it's step 1, 2, 3, 4, you push a button, and then you're going to get the exact same product that you had to teach somebody 8 months to do, right? It's fascinating.
The accreditation bodies feel about those kind of SOPs? Like, are they accepting those? Like those are, being PCAB accredited or whatever? I mean, what are you finding with those people who again have a different take? They want to spend a lot of money in your pharmacy.
So going full circle, what's funny is, when we first started the Maz a little over 9 years ago, they were a little resistant to it. So they wanted, a lot of validation studies. They wanted it very, very detailed to show that, you're going to get, you put in X, you'll get Y, the simple formula that we've discussed in the past. But nowadays, PCAB accreditors, things like that, they actually are highly encouraging for independent pharmacies to purchase this technology because it has been so validated now. It's becoming very, very common practice. And when an accreditor goes in there, if they know they have a MAZ or to create all the different compounds, they feel like they don't have to, evaluate the process, all the processes as in much detail because they know what they're already getting. They know that the technology is going to work. They've become to trust it essentially, right? So, for a lot of the surveyors that go out there, it's almost like a stamp of approval once they walk in and they see the technology in there working effectively. So no, at the initial stages there was some skepticism, but it's totally been alleviated now.
That's good.
This is an important topic because, typically when you're going to hire someone, one of two things has happened. Someone's quit on you, right? Or you had to fire someone, or you're growing to the point where you're forced to hire someone. You never get to hire someone, going, oh, in the next 3 months, I'm going to be here and I'm going to get this nice person, I'm going to train them. So having technology that has a process where you can go, hey, person, today, I can put you right here today and get value today.
Yeah.
And here's 4 steps and here's what a good job looks like. The other thing with people is they want to know that they did a good job, right? And so if you can go, hey, listen, you do these 4 things and you do it just like this, you provide value and everyone's going to love you.
Job satisfaction. Everyone wants to feel satisfied at the end of the day.
But that does go back to your point of implementation, because I think the number one thing we see problems with technology is people don't implement it, right? They don't take the time to step back and go, how am I going to change my workflow? How is this going to change people's responsibilities? Where am I going to put, what am I going to change? Because it, change isn't fun and it's really hard. So it sometimes slows you down at first, but once you get it in, then it's much more efficient. So, that's the number one reason we see people not get their return is not the technology, but because of the implementation.
I wish everyone, I wish I could just shake everyone and tell them that, it's okay that you're going to have some resistance, that it's going to be tough at the beginning, but trust me, at the end of this road, you're going to be 10 times happier. And I have numerous, I can't even count how many times it's happened to where I've gone into an independent pharmacy. The owner has said, yes, we're going to implement the technology. And you have Debbie and Betty on the other side who've been doing it for the past 20 years. They're like, this young punk's coming in telling me I should do it this way. I'm not going to do it that way. I've been doing it this way for so long. And then they're super resistant. But you go through the process, you dial it in for them, you work around what they like to do. And I kid you not, they come back to me 8 months later and they're like, I don't know what I've been doing this entire time. I'm not gonna be able to live without this thing. It is just so, but if people just
anymore.
What'd you say?
And Betty doesn't work there anymore.
I know, it's just it's fascinating. People just took the time to really just look at the big picture of it and this is going to work. it would just be my job would be so much easier.
It is easier said than done to implement this technology.
Agreed.
because
It is.
I mean, it'll slow people down and it changes their job and like, I mean,
Yep.
you have to kind of force that change.
That's the
Yeah.
There's a period in which you're going to go through in which you're going to train them on this versus training new employees on how to do the job from scratch. But I will say from our business too, you know, we do a lot of transition side business, right? We're helping clients buy pharmacies and we're helping pharmacies sell. And when there's automation in place and when there's process,
Oh, yeah.
the ability to transition to a new owner, it's much more attractive, right?
Oh, yeah.
When somebody's
Yeah.
looking at a store and they've got automation in place and it's not a store from 1970, then, you know, the transition on both sides is better. You can get more value from your pharmacy and the buyer coming in can step in there and do process that doesn't need, you know, Betty, who's been there 35 years to do it.
Would you rather buy a pharmacy that has no USB 800 yet and is still doing things by hand? Or do you want to see one that has a USB 800 with a MAS and all this different stuff? That's worth more to you because you don't have to go make that investment.
Well, it would be much easier for me to sell your pharmacy if you had your stuff together. If you had your, we'll say your everything simplified and how you're doing it. You know, not only does it help you make more money while you own the business, when you sell it, you know, I think we're saying the same thing. You're now worth more because I don't have to worry about Bob, the bad chemist, quitting. You know, I can, you know, I've got decent people here. Their work environment's better. And it's more of a, you know, you pass the baton instead of you pass this big old file of, you know, everything messed up and shaking around. I don't know where to find this stuff. I mean, it makes it organized, efficient, more profitable. So not only can you make more every year, when you sell the thing, you can make more money.
And
so that's
again,
a win-win.
That goes right back to the way you started this off, and you're like, you have to look at this as a 10-year plan, a 20-year plan, a 30-year plan. So if you're looking at it in that 30-year plan, you're like, hey, I've built this up to be more profitable in my end game when I want to sell this thing and go live on the side of the mountain, right? So you ought to really think of it in the grand scheme of things, not just right now.
Well, we've actually walked away from purchasing a pharmacy because the pharmacist was not under contract and the whole business was dependent upon that pharmacist, and if we had no guarantee of, so again, if there was process, if there were other, you know, if there was more process in place that a less seasoned person could step into that environment and do well, then
We would have bought it.
you know, we probably would have bought that pharmacy. So there's a lot to think about when you're looking at the investment, and it's a big investment up front, but you are investing in your pharmacy.
You said something about, you know, this 30-year plan. So as someone who has seen, we all seen and we've done, you know, buy stores and sell stuff ourselves. I'm going to guess that most people watching this aren't on a 30-year plan, first of all, okay? And if you want to stop it, I mean, don't have a 30-year plan. You should have, you know, 1 year, 5, 10-year, maybe kind of plan, because the rest, if you over plan, you will be changing your plan again. You know, your plan now is more to that guy that you gave as the example where, you know, he was messing up all his weekends because he was in there having to make all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, today's person who wants to buy a pharmacy doesn't want to work like my dad. They don't want to work, you know, the 60 hours a week and come home at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. They want to be able to go to the volleyball game, the soccer game, the football game, the dance recital. They want to be able to go play golf. They want to go to a brewery. They want to try some bourbon. They want to go to Hawaii. They want to go to Cancun. They want to go to England. They want to play golf in Scotland.
Is that like your 5-year plan?
This runway of 30 years. And if you do have that runway, you're going to not like your business. And if you're not going to like your business, you're going to want to call me to sell it. And then, you know, you're not going to make any money. You know, you have to like your business, or, you know, I'll say the three of us can't help you then.
Well, yeah, and guess what? You still only have so much payroll that you can have because your margin dictates how much payroll you can have. And so if you want to be able to go to Hawaii and play golf in Scotland, you've got to be efficient on this side so that you can go do those things. So it's these technologies and implementing them correctly and finding efficiencies that allow you to do that. But that may cause you to, in the short term, spend dollars, maybe take a smaller salary so you can go implement these things in order to set it up so that you can do those things.
Well, the math is pretty simple. I mean, this isn't a huge investment of capital.
Yeah, no, it's not.
This is not buying a prop robot.
Plus, there's
This is-
accounting benefits, correct?
This is not the problem of buying a new pharmacy system.
Yeah.
Which costs, maybe less than what it is, but would give you more gray hairs than, who's a white-headed person? You'd say white, Santa Claus. Yeah.
But there's also some accounting benefits, right, Rich? I mean,
Yeah,
it can be, I guess.
certainly, if you've got profit, there's deductibility. You can choose how you want to deduct it. You can deduct it, you can accelerate the depreciation on it and take it usually in the first year, as long as you put it in service by the final day of the year. It's got to be in service. If you would rather spread it out, you can spread it out over, a 5-year life. So, yeah, the cost of it's going to be fully deductible, either, like I said, either immediately up front or over time for the most part.
Right.
So,
You can make
And that-
investments.
That goes hand in hand with,
Investment for lots of reasons. I mean, you got, okay, me, the operator, who would say that's good. You got you, the guy who wants to buy or sell, saying that. And then you got your accountant, who usually tells you, that you got to save all this money, telling you, okay, this is a good investment to create more profit. And it is deductible. I mean, there's really good things. Plus again, all those things we talk about, you'll like your life better.
so if that goes, I'll use one last example before we kind of wrap things up a little bit, but, and this is more actually for like a new pharmacy owner. So I've actually been in positions where it's a brand new pharmacy. It's a single pharmacist. They don't even have a technician yet. They want to get into compounding. And, they've been like, hey, I have to stay after we close at 6 o'clock and I have to compound for 3-4 hours just so I can get it done for the next day. This is full blown happen. Customers purchased a Maz. They're like, you know what? I've gotten my evenings back. I only have to stay 1 more hour after work now instead of 4. So I can go home and have dinner with my kids now and stuff. So, your quality of life is going to go up if you embrace technology tenfold. And then to kind of pinpoint, as far as your financials, that's one thing that Medisca has also really done a very good job of, is lowering that barrier to entry. So we offer non-interest bearing terms on the purchase. So you do not have to pay interest on it, and you don't have to pay for it all at once. So as long as you are able to put down a down payment, you can split the remaining balance over 12 or 24 months. Accountants love interest-free investment. And then lastly, to touch on his capital expenditure for your year-end tax, because they're just terms, we actually invoice the full amount. So if you wanted to, you could write off the capital expenditure for the entire year because you've been invoiced the full amount.
Well, I know that Rich and Owen have done the math of, like, when someone's doing a startup or buying a store, of adding compounding. We've looked at what it takes for the equipment, the capital outlay. It's really small compared to buying a pharmacy.
Yeah, like when you start or
Well,
buy
like a return of this.
yeah, like when you're starting and buying a store, you can add some of these improvements into your financing, which could be over 10, 15 years. And so now you're paying for that over a 10 or 15-year period. And so the number of, prescriptions that you need to, I forget, what do we calculate, like 10 a week or something like that, to
really
pay for the cost? Not just the Maz, but to build out a compounding lab completely.
yeah, I just did the math in my head. And if you did 1 compound a day, every, 5 days a week, 52, you'd more than pay for the Maz with, with 0% financing, right?
Yeah.
So
Because
like
what
you've gotta
compounds
go-
are 80% margin about? I mean, so
Yeah.
you don't have a lot to play with.
$50 a compound, and you do an extra 5 a week, and so you're making $250 a week, and you multiply that out, that would pay for the Maz, right? So under financing. So yeah, it's not as much as you typically think. So
Yeah, and it is, you have a point with the startups that, if you're a startup and, because a lot of times you'll be filling, let's say 20, 30 a day. Well, you have a lot of downtime. So if you could just pop over to the Maz and whoop,
Exactly.
make it
Yeah.
versus, having to get all your stuff out and do all this different stuff. it could prevent you from hiring someone for a long time.
That's what,
Which
yeah.
is the biggest cost when you're starting a store.
Yeah. Hire somebody to work for you so you can take a day off.
Yeah.
Or do one of the numerous things that you listed. I'm pretty sure we just learned what your 10-year plan is between going to breweries in bourbon in Scotland and everything.
He's already doing all that.
Okay. Well, good. Well, we've been on for 45 minutes. I feel like we've covered a ton of great topics. Is there anything that you guys want to discuss further, or any questions that you have?
No, not really. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Cool.
appreciate
Well,
it.
I greatly appreciate your guys' time. Thank you so much. I've actually learned quite a bit from this, just thinking of, your long-term strategies and all that. So I've gotten some benefit for it, and I hope everyone else who's been joining us as well gets some benefit out of it, or just spark some ideas of, maybe I should do this. That's what I'm trying to accomplish with these kinds of with these master classes. I want to spark somebody's entrepreneurial spirit again, because at the end of the day, I always say, an independent pharmacist is an entrepreneur at the end of the day. They really are. They're more than just a pharmacist. So, all right. Well, like I said again, there is a recording of this. Everyone who has attended will get an email with a link to the recording. And I thank everyone. If there's any questions, I will leave it open for a few minutes. You can definitely put something in the chat, and we'll answer it for you.
We'll post it on our website too, independentrxconsulting.com, and on our YouTube channel.
Very nice.
And I'll give a plug for our, ongoing services. I mean,
Yeah.
when you're in the pharmacy business, one of the things that I learned very long was having people that had differing views of just me really help you think. And while, our specialty is helping, let's say, the pharmacist in terms of, and pharmacy owners of running their business and doing their accounting and tax. I mean, it's a perspective that's good, that they know what you as a pharmacist need, but they also know the basics of timely financials, and we're working on, your budgets and, your payroll and things that can make your business better. Pharmacy is a complicated business. We receive revenue in so many different buckets now. And if you're not getting good advice, or you don't have somebody to throw things against the wall with, you're missing out.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I always mention to customers, take advantage of the resources that are out there. You're not in this all alone. You can definitely flex on any of the resources that are out there. So a question did come: what do you guys think about S corp versus C corp for pharmacy startup?
For a startup, C corps are challenging because of double taxation, right? So, the corporation itself on any profit is taxed, and then the individual, when they pull the money back out of the pharmacy, is also taxed at individual rates. So there's the double taxation. So typically we see startups actually start up as straight LLCs, and then at some point convert to an S corp, and there's some reasons, and I can talk to you about that if you look us up and get on my calendar. But typically start as an LLC, at some point switch to an S corp. Only certain cases do we recommend a C corp, and those are rare.
Yeah, not as a startup ever, right?
No.
Like
Well, unless you do a rollover.
Unless you're rolling your IRA in a ROBS and using a ROBS to using your IRA to fund.
And even in a startup, that's hard to justify sometimes.
Yeah, you need to be taking several $100,000 out of your IRA to do that. So.
Hey guys, my name is Alex. Thank you so much for answering my question. But yes, that's exactly where I was going with that regarding to rollover.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I also
Yeah.
like the C corp and all the breakdowns of it, but it seems like that's the requirement.
It is a requirement to do a ROBS. You have to be a C corp. So those are the only well, we have a couple others, but we do have several clients that have used ROBS to start their pharmacies, and they have to be C corps.
But sometimes it's actually cheaper for you just to take the hit.
Yeah.
And then the taxes that you pay so much less on the C corp, and in a startup you typically lose money in the first year, so you might get some.
You have enough losses to offset the income that you're going to have to pick up. So, that's definitely a conversation that we have frequently. So you can give us a call about that.
Yeah, it's probably a 30-minute conversation, but you know, we'd have to understand your situation, but there's a chance that it's cheaper for you not to do the
Yeah, but you
rollover.
could, what you're saying is that you can still take the money out, but I'd pay the tax hit by taking the money out.
Right.
So that tax hit is gonna be less than all the pains that you would say typically someone would have a C corp.
Yeah, because with the ROBS, there's also an annual requirement, which is expensive to maintain because you have to have reporting and so forth around a ROB. So it's an analysis that needs to be done, but we've seen both ways.
Yep. So we need to look at you as an individual and determine which one's best for you.
Thank you.
Look at that. That's definitely a question I would not be able to answer. So
Yeah.
thankfully you guys are around. How much would it cost?
Little offshoots, don't do a ROB to buy your Maz.
So there's one more question in. How much would it cost to build a new compounding room with this equipment? So the Maz isn't going to decrease your capital expenditure to build out a room. That it's not an inexpensive piece of equipment. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We do offer discounts on it, but most importantly, what it's going to do is creating your compounds is where you're going to get your value out of it. That's where you're going to get your biggest return. So instead of having to purchase unguator, ointment mill, or Samex, you know, hot plate, all those other pieces of equipment, which are going to add up to the same amount of a Maz, you're just going to have one piece of equipment instead of, you know, 6 or 7. So
Well, and if you have to build a USP 800 room, then you don't have to buy 2 of them.
exactly, you have to buy one.
Um,
So, and that's a very difficult question to answer also in the regards, there's so many moving pieces to it, whether you're doing hazardous or if you're doing non-hazardous. Are you doing capsule powders? Or are you doing just mostly topical cream? So like your dosage forms, what are you going to be doing the most of? So there's a lot of different levers to that particular question, but I can tell you that the technology will hands down allow you to create your compounds faster than anything else that is conventional out there. There's no doubt.
And that kind of comes back to what we talked about earlier, you know, even if you're having to put $100,000 in, right, to build your initial lab and set it up,
equipment and all that, yeah.
you know, if you have, you just have to have an ability to go get, you know, 15 to 20 compounds a week. And if you can get that kind of business and you can make the typical $50 to $60, you know, each compound gross profit wise is worth, you know, 5 to 6 regular scripts, retail scripts. So, you know, if you can get 20 a week,
yeah.
10 to 20 a week, you know, you're on your way to paying the note for $100,000 build out, right?
Yeah.
So it's not as overwhelming as you think to get in, and to not get in may be a lot more costly in the long run, right? Because you are driving those retail scripts and all of a sudden your margins are, you know, not 18, they're 16 or they're 14. And you got to do things in your pharmacy to make it, again, more valuable at the end and more valuable to you along the way.
Yeah.
And that, you know, compounding is definitely one of those things.
And if you do no compounds today and you're going to add it, we're seeing 75 to 100,000 to add.
Yeah.
USP 800, and you know, to do it properly is kind of what it costs.
Step number 1 is get out in your community, talk to your doctors and create demand, right? And if the demand is there, then go build it and know what, you know, get a business plan together and know what you're getting into and create the demand for your product.
You just hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's the investment of that is pretty much zero. It's just your time. You know, get that demand first, and then go and kill it. Is there a volume of compounding that makes purchasing the Maz reasonable? So, to be quite honest, this is a very popular question that I get all the time. Like, hey, what level of compounding should I be at before you purchase the Maz? And in all reality, you could be at 0 or you could be at 100 compounds a day, and it's still going to bring you a ton of value. So, you know, if you are at 0, you know, the capital expenditure to get to invest in a machine is going to be a bit higher, but you're also going to be able to provide your cost to create a compound is going to be, let's just use round numbers, $1 versus $3 that it would take to create that compound with conventional methods. So either way you slice it, if you're doing 0 to 100, the Maz is going to transform your cost analysis of creating the compound. So that's where the question is. I can never really answer it in any other way than that.
Who are also like maybe they're 10 compounds a day right now, right? And they're like, well, maybe I should get a pro mill, and maybe I should go get a capsule machine, or they're thinking about one of those or, those kinds of things, you're probably better off getting the larger investment and implementing it because you won't have to go buy those things first off, in the future. And it can really just carry you for good. So,
And the maintenance on it is relatively zero. You don't have to constantly be replacing parts on it or anything like that. I mean, I have customers who've been using it for 6 years and 8 years, 10 years, and not a single one has had to really do anything with it. So it's a workhorse, so to speak. Next question is, getting the scripts is not a problem. What about getting it covered? So my answer to that always is offer a cash price that is reasonable to the patient. Don't worry about co-pays. Don't worry about all that stuff. Say, hey, if I run it through insurance, your copay is going to be $40. I can give it to you for $30, so don't worry about it. And, most of the time, actually, insurances don't cover a lot of compounds. So your hormone replacement therapy, things like that, it's a cash business. So my answer to that would be treat it like a cash business. Don't treat it like an insurance business.
Yeah, go after cash. I mean, probably about half our clients are doing compounding now. They're all doing cash, and that has not been a barrier for them getting business.
Yeah. Could not agree more. The last B class compounding room I built cost CDN $9,400, including the hood. I'm not really sure what that means.
Yeah.
Last class B. I'm not sure. Well, if there's any other questions, please feel free to pop them in there, and I'd be more than happy to answer them. But we're coming up on an hour, so I don't want to take up everyone's day here.
All right. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Cool.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, thanks again, guys. I know we're going to be in touch soon, so you enjoy the rest of your week. And everyone else out there, thank you so much for attending. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.